very fortunate to have a pretty robust Nintendo Switch collection. Over the years, I've been able to get so many wonderful games that I know will stick with me for the rest of my life, if I'm being honest. But what about the games that maybe didn't stick as well with me? Games that I just don't really ever foresee myself playing ever again, maybe. And those are the games we are going to talk about. 5 Switch games that I just might not ever pick up again, if I'm being honest. Hi everybody, my name's Alex, aka Quality, and welcome back to the channel. So I was heavily inspired by Peanut Butter Gamer's video talking about games that he just might never play again, so I kind of figured, why not do a little Switch version? Especially when we're about to come up to me hitting 100 Switch games in my collection. I have a problem, but it's very fun, so it's probably fine. I played well over the majority of games in my collection, but there are a few that, while I'm glad I beat and have in my collection, I just don't really foresee myself ever picking them back up again for various reasons. So I picked 5 of these games, and just a disclaimer, if these are your favorite games, I'm not saying they're bad games. In fact, there are some games in here that I've talked very highly about in various ways on the channel before. It's just, you know, for one reason or another, I just don't foresee me ever putting the cartridge back in my Switch ever again. We're starting out with a game that, I'll be honest, when I picked this up, I was a little disappointed because I was excited to have some of this series on the Switch, but after playing it, it kind of just wasn't super spectacular. Still happy to have it, but I just don't think I'll ever play it again, and that is Leighton's Mystery Journey, the Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy. I always forget what the subtitle is. The Catriel one. So Leighton's Mystery Journey is basically almost like a soft reboot of the series in a way. I don't even want to call it that, since our next new Leighton game is kind of going back to Herschel and Luke. But in this, you're playing as Catriel, Professor Leighton's daughter. Professor Leighton has gone missing at this point in time. We have no idea where he is, and spoiler alert, you don't really find out in this game where he goes. But you are assuming the role of Catriel, a budding detective who is going throughout London and solving a variety of cases. Leighton's Mystery Journey was basically created as a way to kind of recenter and refocus the series. The prequel trilogy really took us to new heights and some of the biggest adventures Leighton had ever seen, and I think the creators kind of wanted to bring it back to where it all started, keeping it in one area. However, in doing that, it really lost a lot of the really cool and wonderful story and quirky characters. In this game, you're going through multiple cases. You don't have one overarching case, which I think is really where this game kind of falters quite a bit, and it's just not very enjoyable. The puzzles are unfortunately super easy, super duper super easy, and you know, not saying that every puzzle in a Leighton game is really going to like throw you for a loop, but there have definitely been some that are super memorable, super challenging, and there's just none of that in this game. So while I'm happy to have it, I like Catriel as a character, and I'd be interested to see how she gets expanded on. I know there's an anime, and I have not watched the anime, but I'd be interested to see maybe her in future games that kind of, again, harken more back to what us Leighton fans really enjoy. We'll see how New World of Steam goes. I'm very excited for that game, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is just one that, unlike the other members of the series, which I have replayed time and time again, over and over and over again, I don't ever foresee myself really going back and replaying Leighton's Mystery Journey, unfortunately. Next, this one also isn't super duper surprising if you've heard me talk about my games on the channel before, and that is Mario Golf Super Rush. This is a game I actually really enjoyed when I was playing it by myself through the story mode. However, as an actual golf game to play with friends, it really isn't that spectacular. As I said, you have a whole story mode in this game that I remember playing with my dad watching in the background, and it was kind of fun talking about golf and stuff. It actually made you learn the mechanics of the game and had a not overly compelling story, definitely not like some of the Mario sports games of old, but enough of a story where I was like, all right, yeah, I feel like I can keep pushing through this. But when it came to playing golf with friends, the speed golf gimmick, which was like the whole point of this game, it was really lame. It was really lame. It was never interesting. I could never get anybody to play it with me. Even just the normal golf. It's like, oh, we could go play Toadstool Tour on the GameCube instead, and that'd be a much better time. It just, yeah, there was not much to this game, unfortunately. It also is a sufferer of the free update situation that most Mario and Nintendo sports games get as they are out for longer and longer and longer. And nothing in those updates compelled me. There were a few new characters added, but nothing to bring me back after beating the story mode and playing it on stream a few times. It just, there's not much going on, especially now that we're several years removed from when it came out. I don't ever foresee myself playing this again. As I said, I love Toadstool Tour. I'll go play Toadstool Tour all day long. But Super Rush just isn't super compelling as a golf game or as like a Mario golf game at all. So happy to have it. I love the box, and you know, that's nice at the very least, I guess. This next one might surprise a few people because I've talked very highly about this game, and while I think most of my opinions are still true, it doesn't really make me want to replay this game, unfortunately, and that is Triangle Strategy. Triangle Strategy, I think, was like one of my top 3 games of 2022, the first year that I started my channel, and I would still stand by that. I think I put it at number 3, if I'm remembering correctly, and I really, really liked it. There's a lot going on for it. The story is very interesting, and I think the idea being the key word here, the idea of having very specific paths for you to go on that differ pretty drastically from one another really does kind of make it an interesting style of gameplay for a tactics game like this. However, this game is long as heck. Very, very long and very monotonous dialogue. I liked the story. I got one of the 4 possible endings, and initially I was gonna go back and get the golden ending. You have one ending each for the various characters in this game, and it's kind of nice because you get a little bit of a different perspective each time depending on what moral decisions you make. Then there's this golden route, and I was gonna go back, get this golden route, have a good time, and feel like that's when I completed the game. However, when I completed the route that I did, the desire to go back and play this game really just did not hit me at all. And again, it's not that the story was bad, but the dialogue just drained on forever and ever and ever, as well as the inconsistent voice acting, which, you know, I could have changed that, I think. I can't actually remember, but it just wasn't that interesting. The gameplay was really fun, but you'd get a very short battle amidst 25 minutes of dialogue that wasn't really moving the story forward, or just was explaining all these things without actually making me interested in the world and what was going on and the political issues in the game. It just wasn't very compelling. And to be honest, after playing Unicorn Overlord this year, which I adored, and that game had, I would say, a much simpler story, but a much more enjoyable story in comparison to Triangle Strategy, that really solidified the fact that even though, you know, style-wise they're 2 very different games, vibe-wise they're very similar. And it just made me feel like I don't need to go back and ever really play any of the other routes in this. I'm happy with the one I got, and again, I still think it's a good game. The combat is really, really fun. I like using the specific characters, but this game has a lot more problems upon reflection that just don't make it that desirable to go back to, if I'm being honest. So yeah, I'm sorry, Triangle Strategy. I really, really did want to love you, but it's a little hard. The other thing, just as a quick gripe, is like, I think the moral compass idea is really cool, right? I think it's a great concept, but it was utilized in such weird ways that didn't actually feel like you were making any impact on the story, or were almost too obvious. It just, I don't know, I think the idea was there, the beautiful HD 2D art style was there. There was a lot lacking in Triangle Strategy though. Next up, I feel as though I could put many games of this series on this list, specifically from this series on the Switch on this list, but this one I decided to go with because I have a bit of a personal gripe with it, and that is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Now, I got this right when it came out. Gen 4 is one of my favorite Pokemon generations. Absolutely love it, and it is one of the ones I grew up with, right? So I have that nostalgia towards it. So when they finally announced the Gen 4 remakes, I, like so many other people, were freaking out. It was incredible. However, once I played it, I had some of the same issues I think other people were having with it, as well as it just didn't hit that nostalgia like I wanted it to. Which, maybe that's my own fault, you know? It probably is my own fault. You know, We like to look at things from our childhood, especially I think in video games, with rose-colored glasses and how good certain games were, or, you know, maybe regardless of the test of time, they stand with us that entire time. But yeah, this remake just didn't hit how I wanted it to hit, unfortunately. Honestly, looking back, I don't mind the graphics. I think they tried to maintain that DS kind of style while keeping it like fresh and new. It was cute, it was kind of cute, but I prefer like the Link's Awakening Echoes of Wisdom kind of chibi art style look as opposed to what they did in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But yeah, when I was going through this, I just kept thinking about how much I wish I were playing this game on my DS again. I loved Pokemon Diamond and also Platinum when it came out. One of the biggest gripes I think a lot of people had with BDSP is the lack of any Platinum content, which I think when everybody said they wanted Gen 4 remakes, I really do stand by the fact that I think most people wanted Platinum remakes and not Diamond and Pearl remakes. Which I can't totally disagree with, you know? I understand that. But I also feel like there was so much charm missing from this remake as opposed to the original games. The Underground was not the same, and that was one of my favorite parts about playing Diamond and Pearl with all my friends growing up. However, I also have to remember, I'm an adult now. It's a lot harder to say like, hey, you want to come to my secret base in Pokemon than it was back when I was 8. So regardless, I just don't foresee myself ever really jumping back into this game unless to maybe transfer Pokemon. I think if the nostalgia for Gen 4 hits, I'm just gonna play him on the DS anyway. I'm grateful this happened because I do think Gen 4 is wonderful and it's a really special time in Pokemon for me specifically. I also think it was a great idea doing these and then Legends Arceus right afterwards, just having all of that Gen 4 Sinnoh love. It really was honestly one of my favorite, more recent Pokemon fan times. You know, things have been a little dark for Pokemon fans over the past few years, depending on how you look at the more recent entries of the series. But having this and Arceus back to back, honestly, it was pretty cool. It was really, really fun to be in Sinnoh so often. But I just don't really think I'm gonna hold the same nostalgia for Brilliant Diamond as I do for original Pokemon Diamond. And finally, this is a big one, and I actually almost didn't put this one on this list because I am not sure of the 5 games I picked, this is the game I'm the least sure of that I will never return to. Because it's a series that I love and has a lot of replayability to no matter what. However, in comparison to the other mainline game of this series on the Switch that has ample replayability and I have replayed so many times, I don't feel the same desire for Fire Emblem Engage. Now, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on Fire Emblem Engage, I have a whole video about it. I have a whole comparison between Engage and Three Houses. Highly recommend those videos. Honestly, the Engage and Three Houses video is one of my favorite videos I think I've ever made. It was definitely one of the most involved in terms of scripting and all of that, and I really, really like that video, so if you haven't seen it, maybe go check it out. I don't think Fire Emblem Engage is a bad game. I loved the gameplay in this game, and I think it's gorgeous. I think this game is so beautiful, and playing it and walking around in it made it kind of worth it for me. However, the story and the characters are what really kind of threw it for a loop for me. The story was not engaging, whereas like you have Three Houses where you have so much replayability depending on what house you choose, what characters you decide to recruit, what social links you decide to do. There's so much. There's just so much in Three Houses. And so much I loved. Whereas in Engage, the story just wasn't all that interesting. I think the overall message of the story was pretty good, but I really was not a big Alear fan at all. I really hated everybody being like, oh my gosh, Chosen One or whatever you were called. The Divine One. Was it Divine One? Oh god, I hated that. I hated that so much. I'm like, just hang out with me, that's all I want. Yeah, the characters in this game were really hit or miss for me as well. I had a few favorites here and there, but even then, like, so much of the dialogue was just so I didn't really care about the story, and I didn't really feel a ton of emotion when I finished this game, other than, okay, I can move on to something else now, which isn't a fun thing to think, you know what I mean? I think there is a lot of replayability in Engage. There's so many different things that you can do, so many different builds and characters you can use throughout the game that I think there's a lot of replayability in that side of things. However, when it comes to me for Fire Emblem, especially because I have a few other Fire Emblem games in my backlog, I just don't foresee this being a priority to ever replay. I'm really excited for the future of Fire Emblem to see how maybe they combine things that I loved in Engage and things that I loved in Three Houses to make this ultimate amazing Fire Emblem experience, but I don't know if that's gonna happen, you know? I'm not sure, but I think if I'm gonna replay a Fire Emblem on the Switch, I'm gonna replay the one that I know I love and adore versus the one that I was really lukewarm on, so, but I'm never gonna say never on this one. Again, it was really fun, so, but in the foreseeable future, no. So that's 5 games from my Switch collection that I just don't know if I'll ever pick up again. Again, I just like I said for Engage, never say never, I guess, but these were the 5 that when looking at my collection, I just was like, I don't see a circumstance where I might play this again, you know? So, and I'm sure there are more. There were a few I didn't include in this video because I did put them in games I regret buying, which is kind of a slightly adjacent video, so maybe check that out too if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments, what are some games, either on the Switch or other console, that you might have really enjoyed, but you just don't see yourself ever playing again? I'd love to know. I think this is a really interesting topic, to be honest, because, you know, I don't think a game has to be bad for you to never replay it, but I don't know. I think some cool discussions could be had, so I'm interested to hear what you all have to say. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, maybe, hopefully, I'd really appreciate it. And if you're not already subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. Lots of games, lots of things. We're in that end of the year stretch, so things are gonna get wacky in our reflection of 2024, so stay tuned for all of those pretty typical but very fun to do end of the year videos. But that's gonna do it for me today, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Go play video games. Goodbye. Boop.